Hi everyone, and welcome back to my craft room. These are the tutorial videos for my October 2021 class by mail. And as I mentioned in video number 1, that we are featuring this time the Whimsy and Wonder sweet collection. This is what I'm calling card number 2. This is a really nice fold. I make a lot of these folds, especially around Christmas time for some reason. So he's had a little bit of an accident there. What's what we would call a reverse gate card. The reason it's called reverse is because normally a gate card has the gate opening at the front like this, whereas with ours, the gate is sort of turned around and we're actually looking at what would traditionally be the back of the card. I like this one because you can you've got so many more surfaces that you can decorate, which is really, really, really good, I reckon. So you've got this sort of whole sort of forward-facing angles that you can actually make look really, really pretty. And it sits up really nicely on display as well with that sort of nice big panel sort of facing forwards like that. It's probably, I wouldn't say the most complicated card of the class this month, but it definitely has the most bits and pieces. So be careful when you're bringing it out of its little envelope. There are no rhinestones or ribbons or anything like that, but just lots and lots of little pieces of cardstock and designer series paper. So you've got, first thing that jumps out at you when you open your packet probably is the 3 little sentiment boxes. They're little stitched sentiment boxes. I'm using one of my favourite sentiment dies, or one of my favourite dies from the current catalogue, called Happy Hippo. Now that's bizarre because I don't actually use the stamp set, which has some cute little hippos and other creatures in it. I actually just go straight for the dies and just use the sentiment boxes out of it. It has 3 styles, and this is a really handy one here. So if you're not really into the hippos, I really still suggest that you investigate the dies. You have some of this wonderful designer series paper. As I said, this class is really all about highlighting the beautiful whimsical Whimsy and Wonder designer series paper. It's got some lovely silver embossing there and some really sweet little Christmas baubles as well. And again, in what I'd think of as non-traditional Christmas colours. We've got pink, we've got green, and we've got blue as well. So they're really nice. So you've got a square piece here and 2 longer pieces as well. Then you've got your card base, which is, I'll give you the measurements. It's actually an 11-inch piece of cardstock, and it's been scored from each end at 2 3/4 and 4 1/8. So if you open it up like that, 2 3/4, 4 1/8, flip it around and go 2 3/4 and 4 1/8 as well, rather than trying to work out what it should be. So that's actually our card base there that gives us that beautiful shape. Then you've got some, that colour, that's polished pink, the card base, and then you've got midnight. Why does this one always, misty moonlight? There's nothing about midnight in it at all. Misty moonlight as your contrast colour. So you've got a nice square, which obviously goes on the front like that, and 2 rectangles that go either side. Okay, so, and then you've got a piece of basic white, and that one is actually going to slip onto the back, into that little back cavity in there, that little cave, and that's where we're going to put our personal, we'll be able to write our personal message when it comes time to give the cards away, assuming that you do. We might layer everything up now, and we'll come back to doing our stamping and die cutting and colouring after we've got the card assembled, at least so I don't lose the various bits and bobs that I'm supposed to have. Okay, so we'll start with this square piece of Misty Moonlight and the larger of pieces of the designer series paper. So that basically pops onto the front, onto the Misty Moonlight. And somehow in the 2 minutes that I haven't used that glue, it's decided to clog up. That's all right, I've got it. Okay, so now this particular designer series paper has a distinct up and down, a sort of an orientation. So make sure when you are putting it onto your card, onto here, that you make sure all your baubles are facing the same way. Okay, so we've got our 2 little skinny pieces here. So what's going to happen is, oh, actually, I might leave those for a moment, just put those aside. What we're going to do then is pop our Misty Moonlight, the smaller, slenderer pieces, down the side of the card. So just like that. So you've got a fairly big gap, probably double my usual gap, so that's probably 1/4 of an inch smaller there. Okay, and then the other one on the other side. Okay, take my glasses off. It's terrible. I can't see with my glasses, and sometimes I can't see without them. Anyway, so we've got those there, both of those on the two sides. Okay, so now we'll bring in these two little skinny pieces of designer series paper. So you can pop those. Now, it's your choice. You can have a bit of a play and see what you like. You can either pop them to the right-hand side of your side panel or the left-hand side, or you could pop it smack back in the middle if you want. I'm going to actually put them towards the right, and then you will actually see them more when the card is on display, just like that. So one there, and again, make sure your baubles are facing up the right way before you glue it down, and one on there. Okay. It's a bit slippery, this one, because it's got the beautiful silver embossing. It tends to slip around a bit. Okay, so there you are. So when that card is facing forwards and up, you're going to see that beautiful designer series paper with the border of the midnight Misty Moonlight. We've got nothing to do with moonlight, midnight. Anyway, so now we're going to bring in our central square, which is the main focus of the card. So what I do, what's easier, rather than trying to work out where to put the glue on the back, close your card down and pop the glue around on the center panel that pops up. Don't go too far top, bottom or sides, because obviously there's going to be a little bit of gap. You don't want to put glue too crazy. And if you're using our glue, you can fiddle that around and make sure it lines up with the two side panels. So make sure your Misty Moonlight edge in the center lines up with the Misty Moonlight edge on the two side panels and is like as central as you can, and then you'll get that sort of effect. So when it's closed, it just looks like a continuous line. It opens, that sort of pops forward really nicely. Okay, so while I'm at it, I might pop the back panel in as well, just so I don't stamp on it or something silly, and that just fits just in the back like that. Okay. You could stamp that with a sentiment or something as well, if that's what you'd like to do. So that's our card base pretty much done. So we can pop that aside for a moment and bring in the other parts. Okay, so what we're going to have to do is, okay, so we might as well do our stamping first. So you've got a piece of basic white cardstock. You're going to need, for this one, the baubles. There's a little 3 set of baubles in your stamp set, and the little spray of holly berries as well. So those two you're going to need. And just in your black ink, you're going to need 3 of this one. So 3, so make sure you leave yourself enough room, don't go too crazy. So you're going to need 3 of these. We're going to die cut them out, so don't panic if they're not straight. You need 3 of those. And then you're also going to need, oh, I don't know why I'm putting the lid on that, 2 of the little flourishy berries. 1 and 2. So what we're going to do is colour those and die cut them. So what are we using to colour? I'm going to use the same colours as I used in the designer series paper. The pink is polished pink. The green is mint macaron, and the blue is misty moonlight, or whatever it is that I happen to call it when I forget what it's called. And you also need a grey or a silver or something like that for the little bauble ends, little hangy bits. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to do one. or how I've done one. Just entirely up to you how you colour these. It's your your cards now, but I'm using combinations of them all, basically just matching them up as best I can. So there is a long thin bauble with a star on it, so I'm using the dark polished pink for the main part of that, and then I'm just going to highlight the little star in the light polished pink, just so it's got a little bit of a lighter star there. Another one, I'm going to use the dark polished pink. I've got to remember which way I've done it now. The dark polished pink on the centre of this right hand bauble, and the rest of him I'm going to use light misty moonlight. So in my example, I have just copied this colour scheme in all three, but it's entirely up to you. You might feel that you want to mix it up a little bit, make it a little bit different by doing them all in different combinations. So this third one, the lower one, I'm going to use the dark mint macaron in that little centre part, and then use the light mint macaron for the rest. And as I say, continue that with the other three as well. And whatever you're using for your grey, this is light grey granite, or if you've got a silver pen or something, quite pretty. I'm just doing the little hangy bits. Okay, so, and our berries, I'm going to use the dark polished pink for the berries themselves. You could bring in a red if you wanted to. I don't think it would matter too much. It wouldn't stand out too much. And the dark mint macaron for the leaves. And do that with both. Okay, so then once you've finished colouring in all of those, so the two little mint holly leaves and your three bunches of baubles, you can die cut them out. And you'll be pleased to know that I've done that already with some examples here. So we've got our three little baubles and our two little berries there, just like that, all done. Okay, we'll move those away a little bit. So what I might do now is stamp our sentiment. So you've got a tiny, tiny, tiny little Happy Hippos stitched box there. And I'm going to use the smaller sentiment from the set, which basically says, wishing you Christmas cheer and magical moments that last all year. So I'm going to ink that one up. I'm going to bring it a little bit closer to myself so I can actually get it lined up straight, given the non-straightness of the last one I did. There we are, that's a bit better. Oh, stuck to my finger. So there we are. So we have that in our little sentiment box there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is bring in the larger white sentiment box and the very large misty moonlight one. We're going to glue those together. So just glue the white one onto the blue one, just like that. And then we can actually glue the little baubles along the front of that. So what we're going to do is we've got three of them, so sort of arrange them along there. So two side ones, sort of basically, you notice your sentiment box has this sort of downward angle here. If you sort of line up your baubles with that sort of angle, it's not going to be exactly right, but it sort of matches the sort of downward angle of it, those two. And then this last one, we'll bring it in and make it slightly lower. So it's basically just a touch lower than the others. I'll actually take that up a bit so that it's just a bit more distinctive. Okay, so we want that sort of configuration with the two slightly higher on the side and the one lower in the middle. And we might just glue those down. You might notice and say, oh, but that leaves I should have done that one over this side. That leaves quite a untidy at the top here. It leaves it quite untidy with the ends of our baubles just sort of hanging in the air like that. And don't worry, I've thought of that, and that's what we're going to use our berry sprigs and our sentiment box for, just to capture that all in place so it's nice and neat. There we are. So they're all glued down. You could have, of course, if you were more comfortable, do this gluing when it's in place on your card, which is probably what I'll do the rest of it on. So I've got my three baubles all glued in there with their tails hanging around a bit, but that's okay. As I say, we'll capture those in a minute. So I'm just going to grab some glue and bring in our card base. I'm going to pop this onto that front forward facing panel. I'm going to go slightly lower than the middle. So it's actually probably, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch from the bottom to the sentiment box, and then a full inch to the top, just giving it that little bit of just slightly lower. Okay, and as central as you can. Okay, so we've got that there. So now we're going to bring in our sentiment box, and that's where this is going to go, sort of to stick down our little untidy ends. I'll bring some dimensionals in. So I'm going to put these on dimensionals. I'm going to pop a couple onto the back of the sentiment box. Now the sentiment box obviously isn't long enough to cover all 3 sets, so you're just using it to cover the middle, or most of the middle. So just align it just like that, as centre as you can and as straight as you can. Okay, so we've got that there, hiding the middle sort of untidy ends. Then what we're going to do is bring in our 2 little berries bunches, and we're going to pop those either side, just like that. You can see there, then that will cover over the rest of those untidy ends of our baubles. So you're going to pop dimensionals on these as well, but pop them towards the outer edge of the berry sprig, so you can put it in place and not get dimensional build up. So it's actually, the dimensionals actually on the card base and not on that little central sentiment box. Probably use smaller dimensionals if you are a little bit worried about that. So again, on the outer edge, so that you can pop it overlapping a wee bit. Okay, there we are. So that is the design for the front of that one. I really like that. That's really, I've used it quite a bit, that sort of configuration on many different folds for this Christmas. Okay, if you have Wink of Stella or some sort of shimmer pen, I think it really adds to the design if you shimmer up those baubles a wee bit. Can't tell whether this one's actually letting anything out or not. Just give them that Christmas shine. It's got quite dark here in the craft room, so usually I can tell whether my Stella is working by the shine from the window, but I can't today. I'll have a look in a sec. I think it is. I can feel it coming out. Feels nice and smooth. And then I'll just pop some on those little berries as well. Now, if you're worried about those berries sort of sticking up a little bit there, just pop some glue underneath and sort of glue them down to the sentiment box. It won't take a lot. Okay. Oh, yes, there's some shimmer there. That's good. Okay, so there is card number 2. You've got your where you can do your personal message in the back, and you've got a really nice reverse gate card there, gatefold card for using the beautiful bundle. Okay, so that's card number 2. Card number 3 is very, very quick, so we're going to be finished here quite early today, which is wonderful. So hope you enjoyed that one. I'll go and have a bit of a tidy up, and I'll be back fairly shortly.